Greetings and welcome to Rauta. Today's album, as you can already figure out by the title, is no ordinary band making no ordinary albums. But definitely this one has strong ties to metal music, and this band turns 30 years today. Or not today, but this year anyway. So, in order to celebrate that, this Swedish maker of its own path has released a very interesting release that is now out in very nice output or a piece of release what we have over here. So I'm more than happy to introduce you to Therion's latest album, the 16th full-length studio album called Beloved Antichrist. And it is here in a kind of a bookish version. So, since there is nothing to unbox per se, no jewel cases or whatnot, but kind of a beautiful CD book. So let's start getting into it. So, first of all, as soon as we are done with the cover, which is, by the way, a nice statue of a Roman age and all that stuff, the second thing is what we want to look here is the track listing. There's not only one or two albums which are not that uncommon with Therion, but three full-length albums called Act 1, Act 2 and Act 3. And each of them is about 1 hour long, so this is really lengthy one. 3 hours of opera music meeting metal. But then again, this is a little bit lighter than typical Therion album, so this is kind of a rock opera, but definitely with a metal touch. So as you can see, this is quite a thick booklet or book, and inside here we have the CDs. There's not much to be seen really with these. These are really plain and simple, just showing you the idea of here. Therion Beloved Antichrist Act 1. Act 2 is exactly the same, but saying Act 2. And then we have this booklet here, which I'm going to show you in a bit. And here we have the third CD, which is also the same. So there you go. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 in a nice book. So I'm trying to show you here the book itself. So it's kind of a marble kind of image background here with all the lyrics and stuff, and it is laid out as a real book, as you can see here, I hope. So it's all lengthy texts. Makes no sense if I just show you every page, but as you can see there's quite a few pages here. There are no images unless I'm mistaken. I didn't spot when I gave the first look, browsing through this a little bit just to figure out what I'm going to show you. So it's basically all lyrics and characters and their dialogue. So by now you should have figured what was told before, that this is kind of a theater play soundtrack in a way. How the band mastermind Christopher figured out this should be a kind of an opera play. So not a typical album release per se, but a kind of an opera which has metal instruments, but of course with metal singing, sure, but opera singing being the main part here. Well, those of you who are familiar with Therion, you already know what to expect, and you won't be harshly disappointed because, well, first of all, this sounds very much like Therion or their previous releases, but then again it's a little bit of different release than previous ones, not only because it has 3 albums and 3 hours of music, but because of this theater kind of a structure on this album. It is a totally different kind of approach to the music than previous one. Les Fleurs de Mans, some 5 years ago, 6 years ago maybe, when it came out, that was kind of an untypical Therion release, and this is kind of related to that, not in the theme, but kind of an idea that it's not just opera meeting metal music. That is by far gone with Therion already. But I'm not gonna list the Therion history here. There's a whole new video coming out about that where I will talk about more Therion and their albums. So let's just focus on Beloved Antichrist and this one. So since there is like something like 45 tracks, if I remember correctly, something like that, 46 maybe, it is a huge, majestic package of music. And like I said, this one is not as metallic as some previous Therion releases. And there's a few reasons to that. Maybe, just maybe, the book where this album is kind of based on, I don't even know the name, so don't ask me. You can Google it up if it's important to you. So, you know, while this is based on a book that is kind of created to be a play or opera, this is not a typical Therion album in that sense. And since this is more rockish release than metallic ones as previously, this one is a whole different type of animal, so to speak. And being over almost 50 tracks on an album, this one is very hard to actually, you know, figure out single tracks like, yeah, I like the third one and the number 42. Yeah, basically you can do that if you just start, you know, chopping this album to pieces and over-analyzing it a bit. But when you compare it to a typical album with, say, let's say 10 tracks, this is very different because, you know, going through 3 different albums which are all telling the same story, just different acts, it's something totally different. In the context of metal music, this is, if not unique, it's kind of a one-of-a-kind album in many respects. And when it comes to even rock music or opera music or soundtrack music, well, this is one of a kind of a release, because usually those kind of soundtracks are kind of put together so that they kind of support the story, not so much as to tell the story in true music. But this one is different because there's so much opera singing, there's so much classical instruments, but also these kind of rock guitars. There are some heavy metal elements, surely, that is common for Therion fans since like the beginning almost. And even when Therion actually introduced to us to opera music and opera singing and creating classical music parts, they still never kind of forgot their heavy metal roots in a way, because that is what kind of carries through the whole album, or album of 3. So this is a very weird in a way. It's very majestic, it's megalomaniac, it's just crazy piece of music in so many ways. Now, being a long-time Therion fan, seems like early or mid-90s, I have fell in love with Therion many times. I've witnessed it live and just loved it. The live performance of the band is something that I could imagine working very well on stage with this album, or album of 3 CDs in it. But now becomes the problem. The thing is that as a soundtrack of sorts, or a kind of a audible story, kind of a opera in a book with 3 CDs, the things becomes a whole different thing. And I must say, it doesn't work as well as intended. The thing is, usually when music is being composed and kind of edited, you just use the parts which are good, you just remove the rest. That is kind of like cutting fat off the meat. So things, when they progress, they kind of, you know, like you figure out which parts are working, which kind of riffs you should use, which vocal parts and so on. And you just remove the parts that are not fitting the music. But this is a different case, yet again, because this is just telling a story. You cannot remove a, let's say, part of dialogue, you know, having the intact story. You cannot remove just riffs just because you don't like it. So when you cannot cross a certain invisible line in order to tell the story or show the opera or whatever, you just kind of have to include those so-called lesser parts in order to make the things whole. And that is, I think, one of the reasons why Beloved Antichrist is not exactly a good album. The thing is, it's not only because it's so lengthy, being 3 hours and stuff like that, but it's also because most of the music here is quite mediocre on Therion standards. That is, at least in my opinion. There are no memorable tracks. They're not so bombastic kind of pieces of art here that actually makes this whole album worthwhile listening to. Now, even a single album on this 3 piece of a book is something that is quite actually mediocre in a way. Surely, the production is okay, it's rather good, and all the vocal parts are, top notch as previous Therion releases. But this one is just feeling a little lukewarm, in my opinion. It's just I'm trying to enjoy it more than it isn't humanly possible. And I find the reason to be that no single track, no majority of the tracks are actually good. They're just quite okay. This is kind of in my opinion, this is kind of a release that is easy to enjoy on the background. But when I start paying attention to the details, actual single riffs or vocal parts or, the whole feeling of the album, I kind of feel like betrayed. Not badly, but I guess if I just exaggerate a little bit, I felt like I'd been lied to. This is not the Therion I was expecting. Well, that's my reason to be kind of disappointed. But the thing is, I was just hoping more. Maybe because this was supposed to be that megalomaniac kind of a 30 years of anniversary thing or whatever. I was just hoping to get a new Vovin or Dekial or Secrets of the Runes Thele or something like that, Lemurium Series B or whatever. But this is not exactly that. Maybe better than Citra Ahra, I guess, but better than Les Fleurs du Mal, don't know, don't think so. But then again, this is still a must listen to for any Therion fan in the world. Why? Because after all, this is a Therion album, and it surely has many elements for, those fans who are enjoying the opera music and that connection to metal or rock riffs and heavy metal and all that stuff. Now, people who are into Nightwish surely should give this a go. This is not as poppy or rocking as Nightwish, where Nightwish is the type of music and you can easily listen to on a kind of rock radio station or metal rock station or whatever. Therion is not as likely to be played there. Meanwhile, it's not underground music, it's just kind of way too artistic in comparison. But surely, Nightwish have had those opera vocals in the past and, lots of these kind of orchestral music. So for fans of Therion and Nightwish, surely this is something that should be listened to. Even people who are normally allergic to rock music but like opera music, they should give this a go. But for an average metalhead, I think this is just way too much to swallow, at least in my opinion. If you're new to Therion, don't start this one. There are way better albums to do that. But, like I said, if you're a fan, you should most definitely check this one out. And if you're going to indulge yourself, get a proper version. I don't know if there is a even plain jewel case version around, so this kind of book is something that is worth buying if you enjoy the music. Don't stick with the streaming services. Indulge yourself. Beloved Antichrist is a beautiful piece to look at, and it's nice to listen to, even if it's not a great album. Thank you for watching this lengthy review. As always, more stuff coming up your way, and should you like the channel, please subscribe and leave your comments below for the review. See you next time, and bye.